Hi everyone, I'm Stéphane Compin and we are live today for our first episode, and I'm happy to welcome David Holland from Result Rules OK. David, thanks for accepting the invitation to be the first guest. Could you tell us a bit about yourself and what you are doing?
Thanks for the invite and to be the guinea pig on the new series. So thanks for that. So very quickly, Lynn and I, wife and I, we run our business together. We started out in the UK. I'm an engineer by background, through logistics, transport, distribution, aviation, recruitment, all over the place. And then we started our own business in the UK. It was a transport and recruitment company. And then we got out of that and started this business, which was 18 years ago now. And since then, we started in the UK. We took the business over to the US for a while. And now we're based out of, we live in Metz in France, and we have offices in Luxembourg and the UK. And we deliver business coaching, training, workshops, and we have a language business as well, all over the world. So we've been here for 10 years now.
And what decided you to become a coach?
It was very strange. We running the transport company that was a good business. It was going okay. It was making sales and profit, but it wasn't a particularly fun business to be in. So I remember one weekend, Lynn and we just sat down and wrote down a list of what do we want. So who do you want to work with? Where do you want to be? And this sort of thing, like a goal target list. And we just wrote down we want to work with positive, like-minded people, travel internationally, and run our own business, enjoy the ride, and this type of thing. And literally within about 2 weeks, a fax came through. We didn't have email back then. A fax came through, and it was from a franchise company, and they said that by becoming a business coach in their franchise system, we would work with positive, like-minded people, travel internationally, enjoy the ride. It's like, wow. And it was almost as if they copied the list we wrote down onto their marketing flyer. Now, if I hadn't had the list, I would have ignored the marketing flyer, but we were intrigued by it. So we met with these guys in the franchise, and we bought the franchise in 2002, end of 2002. And went from there. So we had no clue what we were getting ourselves into. Really, it was a bit of a shock. But we over the years, we obviously developed. We like it, we love it, we enjoy what we do. But it was purely because it appeared to tick the boxes that we made this positive choice we wanted to make.
It's funny how sometimes you have some opportunities that just arise and arrive in front of you. I remember how I joined the mobility industry and starting with a moving company, and basically the same. The ad was like possible general manager of a branch in France or abroad, and this really appealed to me, and it's how I ended up in the mobility industry.
So I think it's when what I've learned is when I think that for most people, a lot of people, they tend to know what they don't want or what they don't like or what they don't want to do, but actually they don't figure out or write down or choose what they do want to do, because it can be a bit too scary, a bit too big. And what I found is if when we decide what we want to do, the opportunities to get there seem to show up. Now, whether that's law of attraction or manifestation, or I'm not sure, but I think being clear on what you want, then you recognize these doors that can open for us.
Maybe it helps you to focus on what you really want. When you write it down, it's, maybe it makes you accountable in a way to say, okay, I need to reach my objectives or my dreams.
I think so. Because if I hadn't have written down that list over it was a glass of wine in a hotel lobby on one Saturday afternoon or something. If we hadn't have written it down, when that fax came in, it would have just been another piece of marketing junk and put in the bin. I was completely ignored it. But somehow, because there was that, it matched with the list we'd done. It was uncanny. It was bizarre. I should have kept the fax, but it was really odd. It was quite strange. And but having it clear first what we wanted meant that we recognised the opportunities that may take us there. So that's how we arrived. And that was 18 years ago now.
And do you know why you received that fax? Was it addressed directly to you?
Yeah, it was. And I think I spoke to the guy when I went to meet with the franchise sales guy. And I said, well, how did you find us? Because we were in Birmingham in the UK back then. And our office was we had offices in a couple of warehouses. And my office was for those who know Birmingham, was in a place called Witton, which is literally in the shadow of the Aston Villa football ground. It's a lovely spot. And I'm sat there with the fax machine over here in the corner, and I said to him, "How did you find me?" And he said, we found you because somebody mentioned your company, the transport company. So the dots all sort of joined up. They've been in touch with other people, and somebody said, "Oh, this guy is he's an interesting lad," or whatever it was, and it just came through as the dots joined up, I guess. But no, he found me through somebody mentioned me to him.
Just coming back to something you mentioned, you said that so you are now living in Metz in France, and you have a business in Luxembourg, a coaching business. Why did you decide to come back to Europe, and why did you decide to choose France and open a business in Luxembourg?
Well, we decided back in I remember the date, 1992, September 92. We were on holiday in on a campsite in just outside Biarritz, southwest France, and
nice place.
John, nice part of the world. But in September, of course, it's cheap because the school holidays are over. So it was anyway. But we drove down there. We were based in Bristol at the time in the UK, and we drove down there in my we had a Montego GTI. Anyway, I suppose it made it. Got down there, and Richard, our youngest son, he was 3 months old. I think 4 months old at the time. John was about 3.5, 4 years old. And we sat on this campsite, hadn't been abroad before as a family, first international holiday. And we sat there, I remember we sat there drinking a glass of local wine, overlooking the Pyrenees. You can see the sea over here. It's just amazing. And Lynn said, "Why don't we just come and live here?" You know, which happens on holiday a lot. I get that.
Yeah.
You know what, let's just stay here. And that. But we decided then we wanted to live in France, and it stayed with us. We bought a little picture, a watercolor picture of a house that was being sold around one of the local guys on the campsite. And we said, we're going to take that picture with us. And that's the house we're going to live in. And it was a bit of fun, that was all. But then we kept the dream alive. We always wanted to live in France. And we went to, the dots all lined up. We went to the USA first for business. And we actually lived in Las Vegas for a couple of years. Now, have you ever been to Las Vegas? The first 6 months were great.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Anyway, it's not the place to live. So we wanted to come back to civilization. And we had the opportunity to come back over here. And we had some business in Luxembourg. I've never been to Luxembourg before. And we thought, this looks a very nice spot. And but coming from Vegas, the property prices are somewhat different in Vegas to Luxembourg. Then we discovered that we could work across border. And we literally fell into Metz. We had never been here before. We went to a real estate agent, and you'll love this doing what you do. And we said, "What have you got?" We were literally flying to South Africa for a conference the day after. "What have you got?" "We need a house. We need we've got dogs. We've got a couple of cars and this sort of thing. What have you got?" They said, "We've only got one, and here's a picture of it." But the picture they showed us was very similar to the house we bought on that campsite so on the side of a hill. Red roof, white walls, typically French. I thought, wow, that's it. So we just signed up for it without even visiting the place. And went to South Africa, came back, moved in, and we're still here. So, but France was always the dream. Metz was never the dream, I've got to say, but we love it here. It's great. I think
it's
people.
Yeah, the same for us. I never thought I would end up in working in Luxembourg and living across the border. It's just that pure luck, or it was the way that it should be. I was offered a job in Luxembourg and ended up here, and like you, I mean, I've been here 20 years, so yeah, it's a nice place to be, a nice region.
It really is. No, we've been. This is, I think, I'm biased now, of course. I think it's one of the nicest regions in France. Most beautiful. Like you guys, we're about 20 minutes from the German border. 25 minutes from Luxembourg. It's a perfect spot. It really is. It suits us well.
And moving to France and deciding to work in Luxembourg, what didn't you expect when you arrived? What the things that were a bit strange or difficult when you arrived?
Paperwork, just acres and acres of paperwork, both from the French system and the Luxembourg system. We've been in the UK, but very much more, if you like, entrepreneurial location, where if you want to start a company, you go online on a Sunday afternoon, and 10 minutes later you're off. It wasn't that way. So we didn't struggle, but the paperwork. So we have a UK company with a Luxembourg branch. We have British bank accounts, Luxembourg bank accounts. We have a French accountant, a British accountant, a Luxembourgish one. We have, and it's just all the, and we're not a very big company, and we're not a massive company, but just the administration, and again, we got through. We had people.
It's challenging, but it's a bit better now than 18 years ago, I suppose.
Oh, I think so. I mean, when we were doing this sort of 10 years ago, it was, yeah, we were just finding our way, and we made a few mistakes as well. We were accused, BIL, the bank in Luxembourg, they accused us of being, what did they accuse us of being? Something like fraudsters and spies. And on one conversation we're having with them, they actually hung up on us. They threw the phone down on us and they refused to talk to us. And we never found out why. But anyway, it's just really quite difficult. I don't think it's quite that bad now. I think Luxembourg certainly opened up a little bit from an entrepreneurial perspective.
Yeah, it's much easier. And I think also it's the fact that now a lot of things are online. So if you are looking for information, you can have it online, where before you needed to, see many people to have a proper overview of how it would be to set up a business.
Yeah. Plus, we didn't know you guys back then either. We would have sat next to you, I guarantee it.
Another question concerning you traveled a lot. You've worked in different sectors, different businesses, different positions. What was the biggest challenge for you in your career?
Gosh, that's a good one. I think one of them that springs to mind was when we started our transport company back in, 20 odd years ago now. We hired all the vans, we recruited all the guys, rented all the vans, got the warehouse all set up. And the week after that, there was a diesel shortage. So we couldn't buy diesel. Only farmers could buy diesel in the UK. And we had to beg, we had 24 vans. It's a lot of people sat there. So we literally had to go and beg, borrow, and not steal, but we had to go and acquire diesel from anywhere we could to get ourselves going. And that was tough because it had been open for about a week. And then all these vans sat there and massive payroll.
Yeah, you needed them to run and money to come in to pay all the.
So it just anyway. So that was tough. But again, I think in career and business, I've got enough grey hairs. I've been through ups and downs and challenges and crises and this sort of thing, from oil crises to strikes to blockades to all sorts of things. And you get to the point, even with what we're going through now, which is extraordinary, where we have that level of trust and in our own ability, and we know that we're going to get through it, we're going to be okay, and that level of certainty comes through, and that's really helped. But there's been some ups and downs. I remember one company when I was working for another business, and we had to shut. It was a company called Traveller, and they made travel alarm clocks and travel plugs and travel headsets, all this sort of thing for going on holiday. And we had a company over in Peterborough that was storing and manufacturing lots of little alarm clocks. Before mobile phones, pretty much this was. And this huge warehouse full of alarm clocks and alarm radios, this sort of thing. Went over there, we had to shut it down, fire all the guys, that was really horrible, and then move all the stock down to a new warehouse in Milton Keynes. And what we did, of course, we did it the best way we could. It wasn't pleasant, but we got it done. Moved all the stock down. And what they'd done, while we weren't there, the guys in the warehouse had taken every alarm clock out of the packaging, put the battery into it, and set the alarm to go off at, I think it was 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. So we got all the stock into the warehouse. There's about 50,000 of them, maybe 75,000 alarm clocks in this brand new warehouse. And at 4:30 on a Friday, they all start going off together. And that's a lot of alarm clocks. And we had to stay and unpack them all and repack them. And that was interesting, but we had to smile about that one as well. You had to laugh at these things.
On the spot, it's not funny, but when you think about it, yeah, it's a story to tell.
Exactly right.
And with everything that you've done, what's one thing you wish you had known before when you began your career?
Oh gosh. I think it was, yeah, I'm going to say self-confidence, self-belief, because I came from my dad had shops in retail. We had green grocery shops, and going into business and working for somebody else was totally new to me. And I think what I realized after about 7 or 8 years, maybe 10 years of working for the people in various businesses, and I worked my way up. I was always the youngest supervisor, youngest operations manager, when I climbed through. But I always felt that it was for somebody else. And I don't know, even now to a degree, it's like, I suppose, imposter syndrome. I always wondered if I was, is that job for me? Should I apply for this job? Is that for somebody else who's higher qualified, more experienced, whatever it was? And I think
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens a lot to a lot of successful people. So I think if I had my time again, I think I'd maybe have a bit more confidence about going for things a little bit earlier, maybe, because I always remember thinking that this job is not the one for me. In fact, when we wanted to leave we were working in military subcontracting for a while, logistics and transport, and I wanted to change, get out of weapons and that sort of thing. And Lynn sent off an advert in the paper for me. I didn't know this. It was in the Sunday Times, I think. And she sent off this job, and it was to be the, I think, operations manager of a dressmaking company in London, up in South London, dealing with professional ballroom dancers and the West End theatre and sort of thing. And that was just totally the opposite, going from military subcontracting to dancers and dresses.
That's really the opposite.
It was like, wow. And I was terrified, but I went for the interview. It was a group interview, and there were guys there from the West End and gals there from the theatre and the Royal Ballet, this sort of thing. And I turned up, and they said to us, "What was your last project you worked on?" And it was like Cats, the ballet, or theatre productions. Mine was the protection case for the nuclear submarine, the Trident submarine, the spare periscope container. And it was like, anyway, well, I got the job, and I was absolutely petrified. But it taught me that what people look for is not all the skills and background experience. It's personality, tenacity, and that side. And they saw something in me, so they told me, and I went for it. So if I could have learned that lesson maybe a bit earlier in my career, maybe I could have done things quicker or bigger or brighter. I don't know. I have no regrets, but I think confidence would be the one thing I wish I'd have known earlier.
And any big failure in your journey to where you are now, that things that didn't go well, and you didn't expect that?
I think so. I think, yeah, lots of not a massive big failure, catastrophic. I think we've always found a way to battle through, fight and fix things and get things done. I think when we had no diesel in the transport company, that was pretty tough. I think where there's been crises imposed on the business, that where things happen outside the business and with uncertainty, those things have been tough. But I think most people have found a way to get through them. And also, I think the crises that we've had, or the problems and challenges and the disappointments we've had, losing that contract or not winning this or not winning that, they feel tough at the time, and that could be as a failure, I suppose, but it actually forms us. We learn from it and we get on. Very few people, in my experience, in any business go through it where it's every day is perfect and you win every contract and every bid.
You always have setbacks.
Exactly, setbacks, but I think if you treat them as a stepping stone rather than a catastrophic failure and beat yourself up, then you can move through from it. So probably had loads of them, but I didn't treat them as failures, I suppose. I just treated them as,
which is good.
Let's figure it out and get on with it, I guess. But yeah, it hasn't been perfect. There's things
maybe a learning lesson and learning lessons to improve for the the next phase.
Absolutely. But everything we've done, I think for you as well, I guess, and for anybody in business, everything that we've done, good, bad, indifferent, rewarding or disappointing, has led us to this point, and we're happy with this point. And the fact I can sit here and talk to you is, we're happy with the point. It's we've arrived here, so I'm not sure I'd actually change a lot anyway, because we've arrived at the point we wanted to be at.
That's great. And do you think that you always had an entrepreneur spirit when you started working, or did it came later?
I think so, though we didn't call it entrepreneurship back in the old days. It was just because I was working with my dad in the shops. And we were, I would go to school, I'd work in the shops at weekends or go to the markets in the morning, all this sort of thing. We got very used to, that's what it was, the business.
You were in an environment.
Yeah, it took everything, and I didn't know any different. So I remember when I went to work for another company on my first sort of proper job, and they literally had to kick me out because I was there. I'd be there at 5 in the morning. getting everything prepared. I'd do my work and sort of thing, and then I'd go home at sort of 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And they said, what are you doing? And that's how I thought it was. I didn't realise.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, is that entrepreneurial? I'm not sure. Probably a bit of stupidity, but definitely wherever I worked, in hindsight, I treated it as if I owned it. I owned the department or the division or the location. I treated it as if I owned it. So I guess if that's entrepreneurial, then yeah, maybe.
It's interesting what you're saying, because it was the same for me. Everywhere I worked, it was like if I was owning the department, the branch, and I was running it as if it was my own company. So in a way, it might be a kind of entrepreneurship, or at least the first steps, even if I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the attitude and mindset that you only sort of get in hindsight, looking back, is what enabled us to do what we did and currently do. I think it was that we were always treated as if we owned it, and is that entrepreneurial? I think it is to a degree. But we did, and we would. If the business didn't do well, I took it personal. Now, whether that's a good thing or not, I'm not sure. But it was that sort of ownership of it, I think, and that put us in good. So when we ran our own business, when we moved into our own businesses, it was no different for me, really. It was no great risk. You just did the same thing, but I had to sign all the checks. That was all.
Yeah, I mean, I really can relate to that, because when we opened our company 4 years ago, it was the same feeling, is that basically I was used to do what I was doing in the new company. The difference is that it was, yeah, like you said, we were paying checks.
Exactly.
And we had to bring money to pay ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that when people either in business, this doesn't go away, I don't think, or thinking about going into business, they tend to think in terms of vision and goals and everything else. Good, that's great. But they do forget that sometimes a motivation to achieve them can be heat. When you've got no choice but to make the mortgage or pay the rent, or you've got to make some money somewhere, you've got no choice to do it, you tend to do your best work, unfortunately. And if you've got that fighting spirit, that's why I see during this the COVID-19 crisis that some companies are doing well. They're dancing with it. They're not enjoying it. They're going to be bruised and battered through it, but they're surviving through it. Other companies are collapsing and they're just giving in and quitting and walking away. Well, there is a way.
You're right.
And we've all got to do it. We're all dancing with this thing. We don't like it. We're doing what we can. And I think that's that sort of entrepreneurial spirit, that fighting spirit as well, that people need either within a business, but also if you're running your own company, you've got to be prepared to take the gloves off and have a fight occasionally.
Yeah, I think that's the difference. You can see in those difficult times that you have people that just complain and just put the fault on everything that's happening, but they don't have a positive mind. They don't think about solutions. They just hide behind excuses instead of fighting back and being in the front of the fight to find solutions, to do videos, to go on social media to promote themselves, and which
of course you're the dancing star now as well. So everybody else, anybody watching this, if you haven't seen Stefan's dancing video, please find it and have a look. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I someone told me that I should be nominated as the best video of the lockdown. So
I think you should. Absolutely, I think you should.
Well, on a more personal side, do you have any passion? Is there something that you do that is special for you that you don't really normally share with the outside world?
I suppose I don't use the word hobbies, but sort of interests. I love playing with cars, stripping things down and playing with engines in cars, that sort of thing. I built a beach buggy back in 20 years ago, a kit car, yellow beach buggy. I built that. That was really fun.
It, yes, really nice.
Yes, right. And that was a big project. So that didn't go well all the time. We've got that all sorted out. And so I like playing with cars, but also I'm a drummer. I like playing a drum. I've got a drum kit. I've got a drum kit in the office here. You can't see it, it's just over there. And if I get to a point of not just stress, but to let off a bit of steam or something like that, I jump on the drum kit and I'll have a racket.
So it's why you needed a house to be to have a space to be quiet, not
away from people. When we lived in Bristol, we lived on a little sort of private housing estate, and it was very it was frowned upon to play the drums by the local people. Anyway, we used to put the drums in the car and take them to a lay-by on the main road, park in the lay-by, and get the drum kit out and sit in the lay-by and play the drums and put it back in again. So got some very strange looks doing that, but no, I'm a drummer and I like playing with cars. That's my two hobbies, I guess.
So that's men's games then.
I think so. I got some very odd looks doing that, but anyway, it was good. It was good fun.
Okay. Lastly, what are 2-3 best tips or advice that you would give to our listeners wanting to maybe launch their own business or change careers? What is your best advice on that?
No pressure. I think the thing that I found for me that served me well, 2 or 3 things that served me well, I guess. One is I've always volunteered and put myself forward for stuff. So if there's been an opportunity or a job or a position, I've always put my hand up and gone for it. And that's not every time, that served me pretty well. I remember when I was a young designer, I was a packaging designer. I used to design wooden boxes for the military. Anyway, I was a designer. I would be 23 years old, just kind of finished my apprenticeship, just a young kid basically, and working for a manufacturing business. And the managing director, who I didn't know at all really, he was the big boss, 2 levels up from me at least, and went into his office to give him some paperwork, and he was sat there literally with his head in his hands. He wasn't crying, but he was just shaking his head, and he was like, "Oh my goodness!" And I just said to him, "Are you okay, boss? And what's going on?" And what had happened in 6 months' time, we got what is now an ISO 9001 quality system accreditation investigation coming up. So people come to the company and they look at it and this sort of thing. Back then it was called AQAP1, which is the military equivalent of it. And the guy who is quality manager had gone ill with stress. He couldn't handle the stress and the pressure. And he'd actually gone to hospital. So we got nobody to run this thing. And he told me about this. And I just said, "Well, do you want me to do it then?" Now, I have no clue. I have no idea what I was letting myself in. I was a 23-year-old kid. I said, "Well, do you want me to do it then?" And he looked at me and he said, "Don't be ridiculous." He said, "No, I'll figure it out." Anyway, in the afternoon, he came down to see me and he said, "Okay," he said, "Look, I'll give you the opportunity because you're mad enough to want to do this. Off you go." And I had no clue. And we had 6 months of hell. It was the toughest job. But we got through it. We got the accreditation and we got through it. And so volunteering for stuff where you're not certain about it, that's certainly kept me on track. So volunteering is one. I think focus on the added value that I give to other people. So too many people focus on sales and profits and margins. Now we need to have that in any business, but for me, if I focus on the people we work with in terms of their results, outcomes, well-being, and value, then the money looks after itself. So focus on the right things in terms of added value. And the third one, I guess, is go for it. Be ambitious. Don't wait for it. Loads of people have excuses. They wait for the kids to go to university or the kids to leave home or the mortgage to be paid off. Or
You're right.
To clear that. And it's like, crikey, how many blockages are you going to put in your way? Just do it, just crack on with it. Providing you've got a sensible idea and you're going to go for it, watch out for all the excuses or talk yourself out.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Very often we are our own worst enemy, putting some barriers on ourselves and to stop ourselves for going forward. And I really can also relate to that, which at some point in my career, I was just putting, barriers and blocks and just not going forward because I thought it was impossible, but it was only in my mind that I did that.
Yeah, I think we talk ourselves out of things, and that's and they never do it. I think a lot of people have this. For me, and this, I was less concerned about the fear of failure than I was the fear of regret, because if I thought, if I don't do this, then I'll regret it. And that was more frightening than going for it. I remember when we had the opportunity of going over to the USA, moving to Las Vegas, and we lived in a place called Newport in Shropshire, which is, It's like here, no, it's green hills and sheep and cows and rural and fabulous.
Was it your first time going overseas?
Second time ever to the US, yeah.
I mean, but
yeah,
to leave.
Sorry, second time ever. I hadn't been before, so never.
Not to travel, but was it your first job abroad?
Yes, first job abroad. Yeah, no, we moved all over the UK, but going from Birmingham to Bristol, not the biggest shock to the culture in the world, but no, the first one. And I remember I spoke to my dad and I said, look, I've got the opportunity to go to live and work in Las Vegas, and he just could not. It was literally,
especially at that time. Huh?
Exactly. Well, this was, I was 43, 44 years old. And, we had the mortgage, the kids, we had the cars, we had the business, the whole thing. And I remember he said to me, because he lived in Telford, which is a new town just a few miles away from Newport. And he just shook his head and he said, what do you want to go to Las Vegas for? He said, you haven't seen all of Telford yet. Like, I know I haven't seen all of Telford yet. And fabulous as Telford is, I'm not going to get. And so he didn't understand it at all. And I get it. He had a very safe, low risk mentality for himself. And good for him. He was doing it from the right space. But people, don't talk yourself out of it, but also be careful letting other people talk you out of it as well.
Yeah, I think the danger also is people around you that, I read an article the other day is that when you have a project, never talk about it to your close friends and family, because they are not the best people to get advice from. You should go a bit further away and maybe have business coach or colleagues, or not even colleagues, but people from the outside that might have a more open-minded view of what you are proposing as a project.
Yeah, I think speak to people who've done it before, because they will always take this view that what can be done and what can't be done, and there's always a risk involved. If you want to change careers, change direction, or start your own business, there's always a risk in where it can go horribly wrong. It can go wrong, but what? So what? If you fall over a couple of times, you have to live on value baked beans from the supermarket for a couple of months. Well, that's all right. You'll figure it out. We've all done that.
And sometimes even when which was my case, I didn't decide it, and I had to get out of, like I say all the time now, it's get out of my comfort zone and just change career, because I lost my job, and it was the only way to do something else, and being an entrepreneur was a fantastic thing to do. So I can relate to that. You need to push yourself out of your comfort zone, take all the barriers out, and move for it. If it's if you are not happy in your job, if or you are happy but you've reached a certain point where it might be a bit boring, you want to do something else, go for it.
Just literally go for it.
I think also now with what's happening, you're going to have opportunities, new jobs, new things to do, and you have to be creative, to adapt to the new situation.
I think so. I think too many people they look at entrepreneurs, whatever that means, or business owners and this sort of thing, and they don't think it's for them. They think there's some magic to it. There's no magic to it. It's blooming hard work, as you know. It's hard work. It's stressful. It's worrying. Where's the money going to come from? Can we make all this sort of thing? That's just part of the ride. But when you break through, and then you have a business that you understand how it works, and you have great clients, and that's when the enjoyment comes in. But the pressure never goes away. I think the difference between a sort of salaried job and running your own business is that it is 24/7. Whether you like it or not, whether you're at the computer, it's always in your mind. You're just thinking about stuff. Now that can be quite draining. That's an acquired taste, but I think the rewards outweigh the costs, so it's worth doing it. But just do it anyway. Have a go at it.
Yeah, you're right. You have some stressful moment. It's I think it's you who told me it's like a roller coaster. So you have ups and downs, and it's better to have more ups than downs. But so it's exciting, it's scary, it's fun. I think it's a mix of all of that.
I think so. Well, I think fear and excitement are the same emotion, aren't they? It's just a different flavour. You know, we're either permanently scared or permanently excited, one of the two. I'll choose the excitement one for now.
Great, great. Thank you for your time, David.
My pleasure.
If our listeners want to connect with you, to have more information about you, what is the best way to connect with you?
Easiest way is probably through LinkedIn. If you just type in David Holland Mba, I'll pop up, and or you can email me davidholland@resultsrulesok.com. And
Okay,
have a conversation.
I will put this information in the notes, and so people can connect with you if they want to know more about you.
Very kind.
Thank you for joining the podcast, David. It was really informative, and it's much appreciated. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.